Trinity Church, now Trinity Cathedral of the Episcopal Diocese of Ohio, celebrates its 200th anniversary. Trinity has served as a creative force for good, for service, and for advocacy in Cleveland from its founding in 1816 to the present. This exhibition tells the story of Cleveland's oldest congregation. Trinity's history and evolution closely mirrored the growth of Cleveland, from a frontier town to a great city. It is interesting to note that Trinity would build 3 structures during its 200 years of history. First Trinity was a wood-framed Gothic-in-style structure with a bell tower that featured 4 wooden spires. Located on the southwest corner of Seneca Street, now West 3rd Street, and St. Clair Avenue, it was consecrated in 1829, 13 years after Trinity had been established. This second church building of Trinity Parish is referenced as Old Trinity. The new church, a stone building Gothic in style, was dedicated in 1855. Trinity's third structure is the Cathedral, located at Euclid Avenue and East 22nd Street. Construction of this neo-perpendicular Gothic building began in 1901 and was dedicated in September of 1907. 4 months after the formation of Trinity in the spring of 1817, Roger Searle came out to the Western Reserve from Plymouth, Connecticut, to visit Trinity and other newly established Episcopal churches in Ohio. Roger Searle is cited as the first rector of Trinity. Searle's work in Ohio was successful, and in 1818 he resigned his pastorate in Connecticut and settled in the area around Medina, Ohio. Philander Chase was born into a pioneer family in New Hampshire in 1775. He was one of 15 children. While studying at Dartmouth College, Philander discovered the beauty of the Episcopal Church by reading and studying the Book of Common Prayer. He was ordained to the priesthood in 1799. Philander Chase and a fellow pioneer clergyman, Roger Searle, traveled through the frontier on horseback, crisscrossing Ohio, ministering to scattered Episcopal families and establishing parishes. In June of 1818, Philander Chase was elected as the first bishop of Ohio. He founded Kenyon College, which was initially established as a source of obtaining trained young men for the ministry, as well as to provide a preliminary education in the liberal arts.
Hannah More was an English writer of poetry and plays, an educator, and a philanthropist. She was a strong advocate of schooling for girls and established several schools with her sister that were dedicated to the education of young women. Hannah More was quite a modern woman for her time, the late 18th and the early 19th centuries. In 1824, Hannah More met Philander Chase, the first Episcopal Church bishop of Ohio. Chase had traveled to England to raise funds for his fledgling theological school in the Ohio frontier, Kenyon College. Mrs. More pledged her support to the mission and to the work of the school. Her portrait, by famed artist Gilbert Stuart, was lent by Kenyon College to Trinity for its bicentennial exhibit.
The strength of the Episcopal Church is its ability to embrace varying theological approaches in carrying out the faith. This inclusive nature has at times caused stress and challenges to the Church. During the latter part of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century, 2 different and opposing approaches, the Tractarians and the Evangelicals, were in conflict with one another. The Evangelical movement places emphasis on salvation through a personal relationship with Jesus. Christ's atonement on the cross, his resurrection, and the authority of the Bible are central to the evangelicals, or the low church. The Tractarians, on the other hand, promoted a return to a ritualistic church. They stressed the importance of the sacraments as a means of grace, a formal liturgy, and choral music. They believed that these symbols and rituals inspired the congregation to carry out good works. Anglo-Catholics followed this approach, sometimes called the High Church.
The inscription on this alms box from Old Trinity reads, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." Trinity has a long and continuing history of supporting the greater community, in thought, word, and deed. Let us ever be mindful of the needs of others. These 4 donor plaques date from about 1890 to 1900. They were probably placed inside Old Trinity to honor them for their philanthropy and their donations made to the construction of the new Trinity Cathedral. Beginning in the 19th century and continuing for 3 generations, the Mather family guided and directed the growth of Trinity Church in the city of Cleveland. Samuel Livingston Mather and his children, Samuel L. Mather, William Gwynn Mather, and Catherine Mather, worked tirelessly in church leadership roles, giving of their time and of their treasure to support the mission and ministries of the church. Their financial support made the building of Trinity Cathedral possible, and they were instrumental in creating an endowment to support the continuing work of the church. Many of the cathedral's great art treasures are gifts of this family's generosity.
The Mather family were ardent supporters of Trinity. Catherine utilized her leadership and organizational skills in her work as treasurer of the Altar Society, a trainer of Sunday school teachers, and as the editor of the Historical and Architectural Guide to Trinity Cathedral. Catherine Mather truly dedicated her life and energies and her unflagging devotion to Trinity. Much of the work of Trinity was done by the women. That is how they were referenced in the histories, collectively, as the women or the ladies of the church, or they were referenced by their husband's name, Mrs. John Smith. Despite this anonymity, the women chaired committees, raised monies, collected food and clothing for the poor, taught Sunday school, counseled young girls, sewed vestments and altar hangings. They did all things necessary to keep the mission and the ministries of the church going. The women gave of their time, talent, and treasure.
On May 12, 1903, Bishop William A. Leonard consecrated the cornerstone of Trinity Cathedral. The stone's inscription reads, "To the glory of the triune God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost." The structure of Trinity Cathedral was designed by Charles Schweinfurth and is considered by the architectural world to be the gem of his body of work. The idea for the cathedral began in 1890, when Trinity Church was offered to Bishop William Leonard as the home of the Episcopal Bishop of the Diocese of Ohio. Charles Schweinfurth was a prominent architect in Cleveland during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. He was chosen to design Trinity Cathedral, and he originally drew plans for a Romanesque building. Bishop Leonard requested a Gothic-style design for the connection with the church's Anglican roots. This offertory basin of sterling silver and enamel was given to Trinity Cathedral by Charles Schweinfurth for the consecration service. The inscription reads, "All praise to thee, September 24th, 1907, CFS. The gold pencil is a gift from the vestry, the governing body of Trinity Cathedral, made to Charles Schweinfurth upon the completion of the cathedral. William Leonard, 4th Bishop of the Diocese of Ohio, served the diocese with dignity and grace for 41 years. Under his leadership, Trinity Cathedral became a reality. He paid great personal attention to the planning and construction of Trinity, holding daily meetings with workers and staff. On the day of consecration, Bishop Leonard used his pastoral staff to knock 3 times on the cathedral's front doors, opening the church to the world. Bishop Leonard earned the love and respect of all who knew him because of his love and respect for them. He greatly enriched the diocese. William Leonard and his wife, Sarah Sullivan Leonard, are interred in the crypt beneath the high altar of Trinity Cathedral. In January of 1942, at the Diocesan Convention of the Ohio Episcopal Church, Bishop Nelson Tucker opened with these words, "Our country is at war." Trinity installed this altar, called the War Altar, in the east transept of the cathedral, below the 15th century Flemish window of the crucifixion and entombment of Christ. This altar was for personal, private prayer and meditation. On either side of the war altar were roster plaques of the Trinity members serving in the military and the flags of the United States and Great Britain. The decades ahead would usher in times of unrest and upheaval. Change would be the only constant for Trinity, for Cleveland, and the world. Beginning in the late 1960s, Cleveland would witness social unrest, riots, pervasive racism, and economic disparity. Issues and ideas, rather than individuals or buildings, would dominate Trinity's story. This last half-century has challenged Trinity to examine our views on human rights, the role of women in society and in the church, ecumenism, war and conflict around the world, the environment, social reform. We wrestle with these issues, and we recognize that there is still work to do. "200 years is a significant milestone. With this bicentennial exhibit, we've looked at our history and our story. We look now to our future. Let us be present in the now, and let Trinity continue to be a presence here in the city of Cleveland as we move into our 3rd century of making a difference with grace, with mercy, and with love."